When it comes to senior health, few activities are praised as highly as walking. Doctors, therapists, and fitness experts constantly recommend it as one of the safest and most effective forms of daily exercise, especially for older adults. But what if the very habit that has been celebrated for decades could, under certain circumstances, actually increase the risk of one of the most devastating medical emergencies: stroke? That is the unsettling reality that many seniors do not realize until it's too late. The danger is not necessarily in the act of walking itself, but rather in the way it is done, the timing, the conditions, and the overlooked mistakes that quietly accumulate. Stroke remains one of the leading causes of long-term disability and death in the United States, with the CDC reporting that nearly 800,000 Americans experience a stroke every year. Seniors are disproportionately affected, with risk increasing significantly after the age of 65. What makes this even more alarming is that many strokes occur not during moments of exertion, but silently at night while someone is resting. One goes to bed feeling fine and wakes up unable to speak, move, or even fully comprehend what has happened. There may be no chest pain, no warning headache, no dizziness before bed, only silence until the damage has already taken place. That's why it's critical to look at walking habits not just as exercise routines, but as potential triggers or protectors of brain health. WellNexus Seniors now introduces an eye-opening breakdown. 9 common walking mistakes that may quietly sabotage the benefits of walking, increase stroke risk, and threaten independence. This information is not intended to discourage seniors from walking, because walking is indeed powerful medicine, but rather to show how knowledge, timing, posture, hydration, and awareness can transform a walk from a hidden risk into one of the most valuable tools for longevity. Walking, when practiced correctly, is one of the most powerful tools for preventing stroke, heart disease, and even cognitive decline. Countless studies confirm this. For example, researchers from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, highlight that seniors who walk daily not only live longer, but also maintain better memory and independence compared to sedentary individuals. A 2023 study, published in Circulation, the Journal of the American Heart Association, found that adding just 500 extra steps per day reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease, including stroke, by 14% in older adults. That means something as simple as 2 or 3 more laps around the living room, or parking a little farther away at the grocery store, could be enough to shift the odds in a meaningful way. Another study conducted at the University of Cambridge revealed that seniors who maintained a brisk walking pace were significantly less likely to suffer strokes than those who walked slowly, even if the total number of steps was similar. This is because a brisk pace engages the cardiovascular system more deeply, encouraging stronger blood circulation to the brain, better oxygen delivery, and a reduced chance of clot formation. This is why some seniors, despite walking every day, eating relatively healthy and avoiding smoking, still experience sudden strokes that seem to have no clear explanation. The truth is, while walking is indeed medicine, like any medicine, it has a correct dosage and method of use. Ignoring this balance can turn something beneficial into something harmful. The purpose of this video is to bridge that gap, to show not just why walking is important, but how to walk in ways that truly protect the heart, the brain, and the independence that seniors cherish. The first hidden danger seniors often overlook is walking while dehydrated. To most people, the connection between dehydration and stroke risk is not obvious. These clots, once formed, can quietly travel through the bloodstream and lodge in arteries that supply the brain, cutting off oxygen in a matter of seconds. According to the National Library of Medicine, dehydration is an independent risk factor for ischemic stroke, meaning that low fluid intake alone without smoking or high cholesterol can increase stroke risk in older adults. What makes this more dangerous is that as people age, their natural sense of thirst diminishes. A walk that once felt energizing at age 40 can leave the body subtly drained at 70, even if it lasts only 20 or 30 minutes. The Journal of Stroke and Cerebrovascular Diseases has highlighted cases where older adults who seemed otherwise healthy suffered strokes linked to nothing more than chronic low-level dehydration. This is especially risky because seniors often underestimate their fluid loss. Breathing in dry air, especially in winter, leads to moisture loss through the lungs. Sweating may not be noticeable, yet water still leaves the body. Kidneys in older adults also function less efficiently, meaning water balance is harder to maintain. All of these factors make dehydration a silent enemy. Tragically, this is preventable. Doctors recommend that seniors drink 6 to 8 ounces of water before and after walking, even if they don't feel thirsty. Waiting for thirst is too late. By then, the body is already behind. Carrying a small water bottle may feel unnecessary or inconvenient, but it can make the difference between a walk that strengthens the brain and one that silently seeds a clot that strikes during the night. Studies confirm that even mild dehydration can thicken blood plasma by up to 10%, slowing circulation in the brain's tiniest vessels, especially during sleep when blood pressure naturally fluctuates. This small overlooked factor has the potential to steal independence in an instant. Walking hydrated isn't just about comfort, it's about life and longevity. Another overlooked factor is the time of day seniors choose to walk. Many older adults believe that taking a walk after dinner is one of the healthiest routines they can adopt. It aids digestion, calms the mind, and feels like the perfect way to close the day. But science suggests otherwise. In fact, the timing of exercise has a profound effect on stroke and heart health, especially for those over 60. A major study published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology in 2022 followed more than 86,000 adults for 6 years and found that people who exercised in the morning between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. had a significantly lower risk of both heart disease and stroke compared to those who exercised in the evening. For women in particular, the stroke risk was reduced by as much as 35% when physical activity was concentrated in morning hours. The reason for this surprising effect lies in the way the body's cardiovascular system works during different times of the day. At night, during deep sleep cycles, blood pressure tends to rise sharply. This is known as the morning surge. For younger, healthy individuals, blood vessels adapt easily, but in older adults, arteries are stiffer, blood pressure regulation is weaker, and the heart is less resilient to sudden fluctuations. When walking is done too late in the evening, the body is still revved up from physical exertion at the exact moment when it should be winding down for restorative rest. This leads to overstimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, keeping blood vessels constricted longer into the night, raising blood pressure at precisely the time when the brain is most vulnerable to clot formation. Even more concerning is the effect of post-meal walking, particularly after heavy dinners rich in fat and carbohydrates. Digesting food draws a large amount of blood to the stomach and intestines, a process called postprandial hyperemia. In seniors, this can mean less blood is available for the brain. If physical exertion is added too soon after a meal, circulation is pulled in multiple directions, straining the heart and depriving the brain of oxygen at the wrong time. What feels like a harmless or even beneficial habit can actually trigger a dangerous cascade that ends in stroke during sleep. For seniors, this doesn't mean giving up evening walks altogether, but rather walking smarter. Doctors recommend waiting at least 90 minutes after eating before exercising, and when possible, scheduling the main daily walk in the morning hours when the body is more stable and resilient. Timing, often dismissed as a small detail, is actually one of the most powerful factors in turning walking into either a shield or a silent risk for brain health. One of the most underestimated risks in senior walking habits is poor posture. At first glance, posture may seem like a minor issue. After all, what difference could it make whether someone walks upright or with their head tilted slightly downward? But medical evidence shows that posture has a direct influence on blood flow to the brain. The carotid arteries, located on either side of the neck, are the main highways delivering oxygen-rich blood from the heart straight to the brain. When seniors adopt a slouched position, rounded shoulders, head angled downward, eyes fixed on the ground, these arteries can be subtly compressed. This is especially dangerous for older adults because, with age, Arteries naturally become stiffer and narrower due to plaque buildup, a process called atherosclerosis. Even slight pressure on these vessels can reduce blood flow, creating turbulence that encourages tiny clots to form. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology has shown that neck flexion and forward head posture significantly decrease cerebral blood flow velocity, highlighting why posture should not be ignored. Beyond direct compression, poor posture also disrupts gait mechanics. The body leans forward, forcing the spine and hips to compensate, which strains circulation and increases instability. For seniors already at risk of falling, this adds a double burden: reduced oxygen to the brain and greater risk of physical injury. The irony is that many seniors adopt this posture instinctively as a form of protection. They keep their eyes on the ground, trying to avoid tripping, yet in doing so, they may be creating a new hazard, starving their brain of the very oxygen it needs to function. Neurologists often encounter patients who experience transient ischemic attacks or mini-strokes after years of walking with poor posture. These episodes, characterized by temporary dizziness, slurred speech, or loss of coordination, are warning signs that circulation is being compromised. Correcting posture can therefore be life-saving. Specialists recommend keeping the chin slightly lifted, eyes looking 10 to 15 feet ahead, and shoulders gently pulled back. Simple physical therapy, neck and upper back stretches, and the use of walking poles can retrain muscle memory and restore safe alignment. It's not about walking faster or longer. It's about walking upright with arteries free and unobstructed. For seniors, every step taken with proper posture becomes an investment in keeping the brain nourished and protected against the silent threat of stroke. The surface a senior walks on is often dismissed as a matter of convenience, yet in reality, it can determine whether a walk strengthens the brain or quietly increases stroke risk. Uneven sidewalks, sloped driveways, gravel trails, or even small hills all place extra demands on the cardiovascular system. Walking uphill forces the heart to pump harder and raises systolic blood pressure more sharply than flat walking. Walking downhill challenges balance, increasing the risk of sudden instability and falls. Research published in the Journal of Hypertension confirms that older adults experience significantly higher spikes in blood pressure when navigating inclines compared to younger individuals, largely because their baroreceptors, the sensors that regulate blood pressure, have become less responsive with age. These spikes may not be felt as dramatic symptoms, but can create shearing stress on fragile blood vessels in the brain, potentially dislodging plaques or contributing to microclot formation. Even something as simple as walking on cracked pavement can be dangerous. Each step requires the eyes, inner ear, and muscles to make constant micro-adjustments, draining energy and overloading the nervous system. The vestibular system, which controls balance, also weakens with age, meaning that small missteps demand far more brain resources than before. In some seniors, this increased demand can temporarily reduce blood flow to critical brain areas, especially if combined with dehydration or fatigue. Clinical observations reported in Stroke, a journal of cerebral circulation, highlight cases where transient ischemic attacks, TIAs, occurred immediately after walks on uneven or sloped terrain, even in seniors who otherwise exercised regularly. The tragedy is that many older adults believe these challenging surfaces are making them stronger, when in fact they may be pushing their cardiovascular system beyond safe limits. The safer alternative is not to stop walking, but to choose flat, stable environments such as community walking tracks, indoor malls, or well-paved sidewalks. Doctors also advise frequent breaks, use of supportive footwear, and carrying water to prevent dehydration during such walks. Seniors should not feel guilty about avoiding steep or rough terrain. It's not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. Protecting the brain means understanding that the environment underfoot plays as important a role as the shoes on one's feet or the time of day chosen for exercise. Walking on safe surfaces ensures that the effort invested in staying active truly delivers protection rather than silent harm. In today's world, distraction is everywhere, and many seniors unknowingly bring those distractions with them into what should be one of the most mindful moments of their day, their walk. Whether it's listening to a podcast, talking on the phone, or even mentally rehearsing a grocery list, Dividing attention during a walk can be more dangerous than most realize. Scientific research demonstrates that multitasking becomes less efficient with age. A study published in the Journals of Gerontology found that older adults experience greater declines in gait stability and balance when performing cognitive tasks while walking compared to younger adults. This means that when the brain is focused on something other than walking, like processing speech from a phone call, it has fewer resources to dedicate to maintaining posture, coordinating steps, and monitoring the body for warning signs. The danger isn't only tripping on a crack in the sidewalk, it's failing to notice subtle but life-saving early indicators of a stroke. For example, slight slurring of words, a brief wave of dizziness or tingling in an arm might be brushed off, or even go completely unnoticed if attention is elsewhere. The National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke warns that rapid recognition of symptoms is critical, as clot-busting treatments such as tissue plasminogen activator, TPA, are only effective if administered within a narrow 3 to 4 hour window. Every minute lost without recognition destroys millions of brain cells. When walking distracted, those precious minutes may be gone before help is ever called. Seniors may believe they are making their walks more enjoyable by adding music or conversation, but in reality they may be silencing the very signals their body is trying to send. Doctors recommend that walking should be treated as a sacred time for full presence. No earbuds, no phone calls, no divided focus. Instead, seniors should tune into their breathing, their footing, and any unusual sensations. This isn't about removing enjoyment, but about protecting independence. Being present during a walk allows seniors to catch the earliest signs of vascular stress and act before damage is permanent. The message is clear. Distraction robs awareness, and awareness is the first line of defense against stroke. Footwear may seem like a simple matter of comfort or style, but for seniors, it can mean the difference between safe circulation and a devastating stroke. Shoes that are too flat, too tight, or worn out interfere with the natural mechanics of walking. Over time, they can compress veins in the feet and ankles, restrict calf muscle activation, and slow down venous return, the upward flow of blood from the legs back to the heart. This slowdown can cause blood to pool in the lower extremities, increasing the risk of clot formation. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, deep vein thrombosis, DVT, is a significant stroke risk because clots formed in the legs can travel through the bloodstream and block arteries in the brain, triggering ischemic stroke. Seniors are particularly vulnerable since aging leads to thinner fat pads on the soles, flatter arches, and stiffer joints, all of which require stronger shoe support than younger feet. Poor footwear doesn't just affect circulation, it alters gait and posture. Shoes with little or no arch support encourage slouching, leaning, or limping, which in turn compresses neck arteries, compounding stroke risk through both mechanical and vascular pathways. A study in the Foot and Ankle Journal highlights that inadequate footwear contributes to instability, falls, and joint strain, all of which raise the burden on the cardiovascular system. Even something as seemingly harmless as slip-on canvas shoes, popular for their convenience, can subtly destabilize walking and increase risk. The solution, however, is within reach. Supportive footwear with cushioned soles, roomy toe boxes, and proper arch support drastically reduces vascular stress and improves walking posture. Podiatrists recommend replacing walking shoes every 300 to 500 miles of use, or about once a year for regular walkers, to ensure soles maintain their shock absorption and stability. Seniors should also have their gait assessed by a professional every 1 to 2 years. As foot shape changes with age, proper footwear is not a luxury, it is a form of stroke prevention. Just as blood pressure medication protects the brain, so too do the right shoes. Walking is only as safe as the foundation beneath the feet, and ignoring this detail could quietly undermine all other efforts to maintain health and independence. Walking alone offers peace, reflection, and a sense of independence. But for seniors, it can also hide one of the greatest dangers, the absence of someone to recognize stroke warning signs. Unlike what many imagine, most strokes don't begin with a dramatic collapse. Instead, they often start subtly, with a slurred word, a few seconds of blurred vision, or a momentary weakness in one arm or leg. These mini-strokes, known as transient ischemic attacks, TIAs, may last only minutes, but they are urgent red flags that a full stroke could be imminent. The American Stroke Association warns that nearly 1 in 3 people who experience a TIA will go on to have a stroke within a year, often within just days. When a senior walks alone, these signs may pass unnoticed or worse be dismissed as fatigue or aging. Without a companion to point out slurred speech or an unsteady gait, the opportunity for immediate medical intervention is lost. This delay is critical because clot-dissolving treatments like TPA, tissue plasminogen activator, must be administered within 3 to 4.5 hours of symptom onset to prevent permanent brain damage. If no one sees the symptoms start, that treatment window silently closes. Statistics show that stroke patients accompanied when symptoms begin are far more likely to reach the hospital in time for life-saving care. For seniors who value their independence, walking with a partner may feel unnecessary, but in reality it can be the factor that preserves autonomy in the long term. Alternatives exist for those who prefer solitude: carrying a smartphone with fall detection apps, wearing a medical alert bracelet, or at least letting a neighbor know their walking route. These simple steps can provide a safety net if a sudden vascular event occurs. Independence does not mean isolation. True independence is maintained by being wise enough to accept help when it matters most. Walking with company isn't a sign of weakness. It is a powerful strategy for protecting the brain, ensuring that if the earliest whisper of a stroke occurs, someone is there to listen. Another underestimated walking mistake involves taking walks immediately after heavy meals, particularly dinners rich in fats and carbohydrates. For decades, people have been told that a post-meal walk aids digestion, lowers blood sugar, and promotes weight control. While these benefits can be true in younger or healthier individuals, the story changes for older adults, whose circulatory and digestive systems have grown less adaptable with age. After eating, the body naturally redirects a significant portion of blood flow to the stomach and intestines to process the meal, a process known as postprandial hyperemia. In seniors, this shift can cause a dangerous imbalance. Blood that should be nourishing the brain is instead concentrated in the digestive tract. If physical exertion like walking is added too soon, circulation is split between 2 competing demands: digestion and movement, leaving the brain as the silent donor. This redistribution may seem harmless, but studies published in the Journal of Gerontology and Stroke confirm that cerebral perfusion, blood supply to the brain, can be reduced in older adults during postprandial activity, especially when combined with underlying hypertension or arterial stiffness. Symptoms such as dizziness, sudden weakness, or confusion during or after a walk may not be recognized as warning signs, yet they often point to decreased oxygen delivery to the brain. The risk doesn't end with the walk itself. The most vulnerable period for strokes is between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., when blood pressure naturally spikes during REM sleep. A clot formed from sluggish blood flow after dinner, and walking may remain silent for hours, only to block a vessel in the brain during these early morning hours. This is why neurologists caution seniors to wait at least 90 minutes after a heavy meal before going for a walk, and even then to keep the pace gentle. A light stroll is beneficial. A brisk walk too soon after eating can overload the system. Seniors are also advised to eat lighter evening meals, focusing on lean proteins, vegetables, and small portions of complex carbohydrates rather than large, heavy dinners. By doing so, the digestive system requires less blood diversion, leaving more consistent circulation for the brain. In essence, it is not about avoiding post-meal movement altogether, but about respecting the body's natural rhythms and limitations. Walking too soon after dinner, especially in the later evening hours, may feel good in the moment, but can set the stage for a silent danger overnight. Chronic dehydration is not simply about feeling thirsty. It is a long-term condition that quietly undermines nearly every system in the aging body, including the brain. Seniors are particularly vulnerable because, with age, the sensation of thirst becomes blunted, kidney function declines, and the body's ability to conserve water weakens. This combination means that even without sweating heavily, older adults can slip into a state of persistent mild dehydration without realizing it. The consequences are profound. A 2023 study published in the journal eBiomedicine, part of the Lancet Discovery Science Group, revealed that poor hydration was linked to a 21% higher risk of premature mortality and chronic diseases such as heart failure, dementia, and stroke. Dehydration doesn't just make blood thicker, it impairs circulation, elevates blood pressure, and disrupts the delicate balance of electrolytes that keep the nervous system functioning properly. In fact, the National Institutes of Health, NIH, has reported that chronic low water intake is directly associated with accelerated biological aging and increased cardiovascular strain. For the brain, dehydration reduces cerebral blood flow and oxygen delivery, conditions that can encourage clot formation during sleep. Seniors who wake up disoriented, fatigued, or with headaches may actually be experiencing the neurological impact of inadequate hydration. The risk is magnified by factors such as diuretic medications for blood pressure or heart disease, which increase urine output and further deplete fluid levels. Seasonal factors also play a role. Winter's dry air accelerates water loss through respiration and skin, while summer heat speeds evaporation and sweat. Even a 1 to 2% drop in body water can reduce cognitive performance, memory, and coordination, all critical defenses against falls and vascular stress. Hydration, therefore, is not optional. It is a cornerstone of stroke prevention. Doctors recommend not waiting for thirst, but instead creating structured hydration routines. A glass of room temperature water in the morning, another before and after walks, and steady intake throughout the day. Beverages high in caffeine or alcohol should be limited, as they contribute to water loss. Soups, fruits like watermelon, and vegetables with high water content can also help seniors maintain hydration without overloading the bladder at once. The evidence is clear. Hydration is medicine. It preserves circulation, keeps blood fluid enough to nourish the brain, and drastically reduces the likelihood of stroke. Ignoring it, on the other hand, quietly sets the stage for vascular events that strike without warning, often at night when the body is least prepared to defend itself. Safe walking for seniors is not simply about putting one foot in front of the other. It is about transforming a routine into a protective ritual for brain and heart health. After reviewing the hidden risks, hydration, timing, posture, terrain, distractions, footwear, meal balance, and companionship, the evidence points to one conclusion: seniors must walk smarter, not just more. Practical guidelines are crucial. First, hydration. Seniors should drink a glass of water before and after each walk, aiming for a steady intake of fluids throughout the day, not waiting for thirst. Second, timing. Morning or early afternoon is ideal, avoiding late evening walks that disrupt the body's natural cardiovascular rhythms. Third, environment. Choosing flat, even surfaces such as mall corridors, community walking tracks, or neighborhood sidewalks is far safer than challenging trails or steep hills. Fourth, footwear. Supportive shoes with cushioned soles, proper arch support, and a roomy toe box ensure circulation remains unimpeded and gait stays stable. Fifth, posture. Walking upright with the chin lifted and shoulders back preserves carotid artery flow to the brain. Sixth, companionship. Even occasional walks with a friend, family member, or group can provide the life-saving presence needed to spot early stroke symptoms. For those who value independence, wearable devices with fall detection and GPS monitoring provide backup safety. Seventh, awareness. Seniors should treat walking as a mindful practice free from phones, earbuds, or multitasking. This allows full attention on breathing, balance, and any unusual sensations that may signal a medical emergency. Finally, meal balance. Lighter evening meals followed by gentle stretching instead of brisk walks can protect the brain during the vulnerable overnight hours. These strategies are backed by authoritative organizations like the American Stroke Association, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and multiple peer-reviewed studies on exercise physiology and aging. When followed consistently, they transform walking from a silent risk into a shield of protection. The act itself remains one of the most powerful tools seniors have to maintain mobility, mental clarity, and independence, but only when done with intention. By aligning walking habits with science, Seniors are not only adding years to their life, but life to their years, preserving the ability to live fully with sharp minds and strong bodies. In closing, WellNexus Seniors reminds its audience that walking is far more than a routine. It is a daily decision that can either safeguard or endanger brain health, depending on how it is approached. Every story, every statistic, and every scientific insight shared here points to the same conclusion. Seniors must not abandon walking, but refine it. Hydrate before and after. Choose the morning sun over the late-night moon. Select shoes that support rather than strain. Lift the head and walk tall, and when possible, invite a companion. These small changes can be the difference between waking refreshed or waking to a life forever altered by stroke. The American Heart Association continues to affirm that moderate daily walking remains one of the most effective, non-pharmaceutical tools for reducing cardiovascular risk, but only when performed wisely. The independence so many seniors fight to preserve is not found in ignoring these adjustments but in embracing them. By walking smarter, seniors can protect their autonomy, their memories, and their ability to connect with loved ones. Now the power rests with the viewer. If you have learned something valuable today, take a moment to reflect. Which of these habits will you change first? Share your answer in the comments below. We want to know which strategies resonate most with you. If you found this video useful, press like so it reaches more seniors who need it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to WellNexus Seniors and turn on notifications so you never miss another science-backed health guide tailored to your needs. Ready to take the next step toward a healthier life? Check out the recommended products that can support your journey. Find the links in the pinned comment. Together, this community can rewrite the story of aging, not as a decline but as a season of strength, wisdom, and resilience. Walking is not just about steps, it is about direction. Let's make sure every step leads toward health, independence, and the dignity of living life fully. Because when you walk with purpose and knowledge, you're not just moving, you're protecting your brain, your heart, and your future.